How are you guys? Today I thought I'd do a video on Chiyoda armoured car. Now the Chiyoda armoured car is a bit of an enigma. Apparently up to 200 were built between 1931 and 1945, and to be honest, I have about a dozen books on Japanese that would cover the Japanese army and its equipment and its organization, and the Chiyoda armored car doesn't appear in any of those books. Now, I don't know why the reason for this is. Perhaps because it only served in China, although some online resources claim that it did serve in Malaya. Now, the resource that I use to get the bare bones of this presentation was Takizawa's Imperial Japanese Army website. Now, according to Taki, it didn't get a type number, and even if it did, I would avoid that because type numbers get confusing when it comes to Japanese armoured cars, as I explained in the previous video. So the Chiyoda first appears to be issued in late 31, and its first combat experience is the Johor campaign, the second part of Operation Necker. Now, according to Taki, it weighed 5.6 tons, had a speed of 60 kilometers an hour, had a 75 horsepower engine, and had an armament of 2 to 3 6.5 millimeter Type 11 light machine guns. Now, if we go online and look at sources like the Tank Encyclopedia or whatever else you can find by following links on Wikipedia, you will notice that a lot of the information on this vehicle is contradictory. Now then, I built these myself using wood, cardboard, tacks, bits from the spare box, and wire, and I painted them in a colour that represents the Johor campaign. Now, the Chiyoda served mainly in China, although there are some, as I said, there are some online references that refer to them as serving in the Malayan campaign, but there is no photographic evidence to support that. Now, up to 200 of them were built, and as far as I can ascertain, they were armoured with 6mm face hardened armoured plate, and had a top speed of 60 kilometers an hour. Now, it seems that the design progressed, because as we see from about 1933 onwards, the armament changes, and the armament changes to accommodate the Type 92 7.7 medium machine gun. Now, you can buy Chiyoda armoured cars from Shapeways, or you can make them yourself by looking at the photographic evidence. But what I find, I'm going to tell you about a few of the contradictions I found. Okay, now, not many, there aren't many references to them, but some of the references to them state that the crew was 6 men, and that there were 3 firing ports on each side of the body. Now, through photographic analysis, and you can imagine when I do make something like this, I look at a lot of photos and study a lot of photos. Each model takes a long time to make. I could never see any portals for machine guns on the sides. I believe that a certain author has confused these with what might be known as the 2592 naval armoured car, because they are not too dissimilar. Now, what I would like to point out is that most references refer to them having a machine gun on the slope on the turret for anti-aircraft use. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that that's a mistake, because the Japanese army were not facing any serious air threat from the air from the Chinese armed forces in the period in which these armoured cars were built. It is my belief that these machine gun ports were designed and used to engage targets on the Great Wall that would have been on top of a hill and then on top of a wall, which would have required a great deal of elevation in order to bring effective fire upon those targets. So what the Japanese did, they sloped the turret on one side and installed a machine gun. Now, as far as crew, as I said, some sources say 5 or 6, and other sources say there were up to 6 machine guns. I personally have never seen, as I said, the machine gun ports on either side, so I believe that they had the maximum of 3 machine guns per vehicle, and perhaps a crew of 6. Now, when the Chiyoda first appears, it seems that a few models have spoked wheels, but these are soon replaced with solid steel wheels with solid rubber tyres. Now, if we look at the tyres, we can see that they're sectionalized, which leads me to believe that rubber track could be fitted to the wheels for traction, which was common with armoured vehicles in the 30s to fit removable tracks, and these tracks would have been stowed in the boxes on the side. If also you look at Tank Encyclopedia or indeed Kampfflieger models, they have failed to properly analyze the armoured car, because this machine gun at the front, as you can see, is in a box superstructure forward of the driver's position. This is something that no online source mentions, because, as I said, they have not done proper photographic analysis. So, as I said, 200 of these were built. The model progressed from the early with very basic machine gun ports to the later model with pintle mounted machine with ball mounted machine gun emplacements in the turret. I have made a few mistakes with my build, but that's mainly down to my lack of modeling ability, because, you know, I make these myself. I don't sit on a computer and make them. They're all done by hand, and I don't really build to a plan. I build them as I go. They were, as I said, they were in production for up to 14 years. They were mainly used for escort work. It's very rare for the Japanese to be using armoured cars in the reconnaissance role. It did happen, but mainly they were for the escort duties along the roads of China, and because they were on the roads, they didn't really need much in the way of cross-country capability. Now, as I said, these armoured cars served in most campaigns in China up to the end of the war, and as I said, the design appears to have progressed. The first model, people talk about a 4x2 drive, and the later model, people talk about a 6x6 drive. How accurate that is, I don't know. So there you go. There is the Chiyoda armoured car, the Imperial Japanese Army, in use in China. Thanks very much. I hope I've spread a little bit of knowledge today. Take care, and remember, the Chinese soldier fought with the least for the longest. See ya.